Christ, I attempt to speak to you in the name of God, Creator, Redeemer, and Giver of life. Amen. First of all, I need to thank Shirley for her very generous introduction. She is a little off base in that these days I have no fixed ecclesiastical address. Partly because I have been doing a monthly commute to Bellacoola for the last 3 months. And before that I was doing a commute to Prince George. One of the books that I have discovered as a result of doing the commute to Bellacoola is a collection of the letters of T.W. McElraith, written while he was doing anthropological work in the Bellacoola Valley in the mid-1920s. In a couple places, he talks about the resident Methodist missionary, a Reverend Samuel Pete. Now, McElraith does not have many complimentary things to say about Reverend Pete. But I was appalled to read that Reverend Pete spoke no Chinook, which was the trade language of the Pacific Coast. Consequently, Reverend Pete was unable to communicate with his Mohawk parishioners. Now, I could have understood Reverend Pete's inability to speak Mohawk. There was probably no one around to teach him the language. But Chinook was the lingua franca of the coast. Teachers could have been found. So why didn't the church provide language training for Reverend Pete? And it wasn't as if the church wasn't aware of the importance of language training. Missionaries sent to wherever, be it Japan, Korea, Angola, had enough sense to know that they needed to acquire the language before they could work in the field. And even in North America, missionaries, both Protestant and Catholic, learned the languages of indigenous peoples and developed grammars and alphabets of their languages. For whatever reason, Chinook as a language died out, although I am told that it is reappearing, especially in the north. English ended up supplanting Chinook as the international language of the North Coast. And we have heard of how the residential school system reinforced the use of English as the dominant language, to the detriment of native languages. The anthropologist Wilson Duff counted something like 34 languages and major dialects in use among British Columbia's indigenous people prior to contact. Many of them are struggling to survive, and I know of one dialect which died with its last native speaker in the last few years. There will be some who will use the language of colonialism to describe what has happened to indigenous languages across North America. And certainly the Spaniards had no hesitation in saying that one of their tools of colonialism was to impose a common language with a common vocabulary. The lectionary that was in use when I was ordained some 35 years ago had not only today's reading from Acts, but it also had the story of the building of the Tower of Babel. One of the consequences of building the tower was the creation of a multiplicity of languages and the creation of confusion so that no one was able to understand each other. Pentecost, as you heard, has its own share of confusion and chaos, with a multiplicity of languages, both living and dead, being used. But somehow there was an understanding of a commonality. That commonality was that they were hearing of God's deeds of power, that the Holy Spirit was speaking through a variety of languages, that the Spirit has chosen not to speak through one language, or to give one language priority over another, or to even suggest that one language is holier than another. People do not need to give up their language or culture to understand what God is doing. So Pentecost does not require a uniformity. it seems to value a diversity. And if one was to look around this congregation, it becomes obvious that we are not all the same in terms of age or physical appearance or whatever, including preferred theological or liturgical expression. In fact, there are some who work in the area of congregational development who would say that a healthy congregation consists of a diversity of people. The challenge then is to learn how to be more inclusive of those who are different than us. Because human nature has a tendency to exaggerate differences and be exclusive of those who are different than us. We need to learn to value our differences and to discover what we have in common, and to be willing to hear the stories of those who are different from us. In our commonality, we have stories to tell of God at work in our lives, as well as other people's lives, and in fact, in the life of the world. As we tell our stories about what God has done, we will find ourselves going outside this place to tell of what we have seen and experienced. And we will find that the story indeed moves beyond this place. It may even be happening in Ballacoola and may even be told in Newlock. But ultimately, Pentecost is about learning that the good news of God in Jesus Christ is meant for everyone, regardless of their mother language. We need to learn how to proclaim this good news in ways and means that will be understood by those who are different from us, and in turn enable ourselves to be enriched in our understanding of the gospel. My brothers and sisters, I have attempted to speak to you in the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. The hymn is from More Voices, number 161, I Have Called You by Your Name.